All right, so a bunch of people have asked me about this trailer. This is my hunting trailer slash guiding trailer. I built it incrementally, but I did learn a bunch of things along the way, and I use it to store my gear, to work on my hunting gear, and when I go guide places, either Colorado, Eastern Oregon, British Columbia, anywhere where I can take this, it's pretty darn handy. So let's jump right in and I'll walk you through everything. I bought it just as a basic utility trailer and went from there. There's some advantages to doing that I really didn't anticipate. To me, it was just a simplicity thing. I needed the trailer at the time, so why not get it? But if I had an RV that was the same size, I wouldn't be able to do near as much with it. There's some things that are like not quite as fancy about this trailer versus an RV type of setup, but in terms of utility, it's pretty snazzy. All right, so starting from the front and we'll go to the back. We'll cover stuff as we go. First thing you're gonna see is this power setup. I'm not an electrician, so don't take any of this advice as the gospel, but I did look into it in depth, and it's actually kind of fun. If you do your own power system on one of these trailers, it's fun. You'll learn along the way. I over-engineered it in the sense that it is very safe, but it probably cost me twice as much as it should have, just given the size of the wiring and all of that I used. But to get into it, basically what I have here is I've got two Battleborn batteries. I believe they're both 100 amp hour batteries, and they work great. They're lithium batteries. They are absurdly expensive well, I shouldn't say for what they are, because they're awesome. These batteries, I've just framed them in here with a board so they're not moving around. Close. Those are the ones I have. I think they're $1,000, $1,200 a piece. I put them in these covers just for the sake of security. But those are much better than lead acid. One of the main things for me is I just didn't want to worry about sleeping in here, having stuff in here, and having batteries that would be a problem, you know, in terms of, you know, letting off gas or anything like that. So that's one of the reasons I went with the lithium, in addition to all the other benefits, the depth of charge that you can take them down to, the longevity, everything. And they've been great so far. I've had them for 4 or 5 years. I will literally sit this trailer here while I'm in the Caribbean for 6 months, and I'll come back and those batteries will have discharged, like, I think pretty much less than 5%. It's pretty amazing. All right, guys, so I wanted to mention that I'm having these custom skinning knives made. These are called Cliff Skinner. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I've had this knife made the way that it's made. I've got a short video on the website. The details are there. pursuitwithcliff.com. Click in the corner up by shop, you'll see Cliff Skinner. Click that puppy, you'll get all the details. All right, so the first thing I have here is the solar charger, and you'll see that I don't have permanent panels on this trailer, and I did that on purpose. I set them up where basically the panels are connected from the outside. I'll go out there and show you when I show you the other outlets, but I did that for a couple reasons. One, I didn't want to have holes in this roof. On these less expensive utility trailers, that's one of the worst things you can do, from my experience, is drill holes in the roof, because once you have leaks in the roof, once you have a hole in the roof, it's a pain in the ass to keep it sealed up, and a lot of people have problems with that, so I didn't want to have that. The other thing is depending on where I camp, if I go somewhere that's a little tricky or small spot to camp, I want to have the ability to angle my panels where they're going to get the most power and the most light. So I have found that the best setup. So I've got the solar charger, I've got the inverter, I've got power coming up here just to a 12 volts DC panel here. So I've got some 12 volt lights here that just run directly off the batteries. And then my inverter runs to this little box here. This is the over-engineering that I was talking about. It's got a circuit breaker, and that runs in to my AC that I have throughout the trailer, and I'll show you guys that. And I also have right here, you'll see I've got it so if I want to plug in the trailer from the outside directly into, you know, an AC outlet next to a house, a shop, or whatever, I can plug it in on the outside, and I can take my panel here and I can plug directly into that instead of the inverter. So I can just pull this out and put it into this here. So I can do that, and at the same time it'll go directly to my charger for my batteries, and I can charge the batteries that way instead of only being dependent on solar. So you can see down here the charger right here. So I've got one of these higher end Victor energy chargers for these batteries. So that's going to allow me to charge them from this outlet on the outside that can be, you know, plugged into just, you know, a normal outlet anywhere. But the other thing is I can plug it in to my little generator that I have, and I'll get into that in a minute. So I've got all the power stuff figured out there, right? So I can run my lighting directly off of that. I can go the other way and charge up both my batteries and run my lighting off of the generator if I want to. So I've got all the different variations here. And then here, let's see here what this is. So here, all this is this is just to, so I have an exterior outlet that I use quite a bit. So if I've got, you know, a couple wall tents next to this trailer or whatever, and I want to be able to run lights, electric lights off of these batteries, I can do that via this exterior power outlet here. I'm not going to say a whole lot about the setup because you got to look into that yourself, all the fuses and everything else. I've got a Bluetooth controller, so I can just look on the app on my phone, see the charge of my batteries, see how much the solar charger is working, all of that. So I can actually see that I've got the panels in the right direction. And I've got 2 different panels, so even if I'm gone hunting for the day, I can have one panel, you know, kind of set up for the afternoon, the other panel set up another direction. And the way I have them set up, that works great, because a lot of times I'm obviously not going to move them during the day, or pretty much all the time I'm not going to move them during the day. So I have, that's the setup there. Oh, one thing I'll mention here is these are little boot warmers from these Graxsaw guys, and they sell them more to, you know, backpack hunters. I know that Brian Call uses them for his lightweight backpack hunting trips. I took these on some lightweight oriented hunts and I didn't use them. I don't know why. It could just be the psychology of how I hunt or whatever. I just leave my boots wet. I didn't find a good use for them, so I'm not gonna bear the weight for that, just because in my experience so far I haven't used them. Doesn't mean that they're not a good option for folks that, you know, are dealing with wet boots all the time. But I have found they're very useful in this trailer because they don't take up a whole lot of space. Normal boot warmers are kind of bulky, but these I can actually plug directly into this USB outlet right on my inverter. And they're basically just little fans, and they've got a line right here. Here, I'll show you. And I've got a little extension for this, but you can see they just turn on. They're fans. So particularly if I use my little electric heater in here, I can throw these in the top of my boots, and they will dry out boots super quick. And they're not like a whole, you know, boot setup thing that you see on like boot warmers inside a house or whatever. So I do use them, and that's why they're sitting right here next to that outlet. So that's the setup there. I already went over my 12 volt. And the reason I have 12 volt lights right here is they're just a really efficient use, because they're coming directly off the DC batteries. So I can turn those on if I'm just in and out of here a lot. I don't have to turn the inverter on. I don't have to do anything else. I can just click that switch and it's going to just run lights right off those batteries, which is nice. So here I keep my pillows and extra sheets up on the top. I keep my chairs over here in this little cubby. I've got my longbow here. I keep a couple flu arrows on it, go grouse hunting or whatever. But in here, I just have all the layers that I'm using for the specific hunt that I'm going on. I try to keep this fairly organized. Rain gear down at, you know, on one shelf, and pants on another, and then, you know, my my base layers, my jackets, in my socks and all that shit. I try to keep it separate, but gets a little bit mixed up. People always ask how this rides, and not bad. Usually, if I just put this one lock in here, I don't lose any of the clothing out of it on a drive. If it is really bumpy, sometimes it'll kind of shift around in there, and you know, some of the clothes will be all over. In general, I don't worry about it. As I get to some other items, I'll show you where I've had problems with stuff shaking around. But all the soft stuff, anytime I hang anything up in this trailer, any of that, I assume it's going to vibrate a lot, and I assume it might fall. So if you consider that when you're organizing stuff, you won't have a problem. When you get the tools, you can look back here, like this kind of stuff back here, shovels, axes. Like if you look right here, splitting them all down here. I've got these axes down here. I've got a bunch of heavy tools in the bottom. That kind of stuff that you might need and you want in your trailer, you don't want to have that hanging up when you move these things, because even if you think it's solid on the walls, if it falls, it'll destroy stuff. It'll, you know, break plastic containers, it'll break whatever it falls on. So I lay all that stuff down, and then when I'm going somewhere, you know, anything else that might fall, shake, vibrate, I just lay it down on the floor, and then reorganize it when I get to wherever I'm going. That basically covers the front here. I do very few endorsement deals, and I do no paid reviews because it would affect the type of content, quality of the knowledge I could put out. So an important part of my business model is my membership group. I'll stick a link right here where you can sign up. There's paid and free options. I do a weekly live stream there. There is a thriving community of folks that are helping everybody become a better outdoorsman. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're an expert, there's something there for you. Go join, guys. It helps me out a ton. It's the way to support this content and to support me. I'll see you there. All right, so on heating and air, in general, I'm not using this trailer in really hot temperatures. You might want to add a stronger fan or something if you're doing that. What I have for if it's fairly warm is I just have this little fan, just kind of oscillates, runs off my AC outlets here, and there's no problem, works for me in the conditions that I use this trailer for. So springtime, you know, September into the fall. I do use this trailer when it's fairly cold. So, you know, late October, November, even December hunts. And what I primarily use is just this little electric heater right here. And that thing works great. It's a pretty small, you know, it's pretty small space. So it heats up pretty quickly. And then the other thing is I just use layers in my sleep system that keep me warm. But a lot of times in the morning I'll throw on this little electric heater. It'll warm up the whole trailer and I don't have any problems. I'll cover this right here now. So this is my cot that I sleep on. I prefer this, and you'll see this kind of idea throughout the trailer. I prefer not having anything permanent in here, because if you have anything permanent in here that's like stuck or you got shelves, when you have a small trailer like this, once you start putting shelves in it and stuff that's permanent, you're gonna find use cases for the trailer or hunts where you need to bring a four-wheeler or you need to bring something, you need the space. And if you can't move things around, you're stuck. And there's a huge advantage of having a small trailer versus a big one. I know you're giving up some of the comforts, but being able to have a small trailer like this and then at the same time keeping the utility of like, hey, I can fold this cot up and have some extra space in here, that's a huge advantage. So that's why I've done this. I specifically did it this way. It wasn't because I was trying to be lazy. I just wanted everything to be where I could fold it up essentially. So I have this big cot here. Just, I mean, you can get them on Amazon. I can't remember which one. I'll put a link in the description of the video, but that's the cot that I have in here. And then underneath it is full of shit. So I have backpack tents, I got backpack stoves, I've got stoves for teepees, I've got extra sleeping bags, I got shooting bags. I always keep a small air compressor in here so I can deal with flat tires or any of that stuff. I keep my gaiters down here. This thing is just packed full of stuff that I need for camping, and I'm utilizing that space. Now, in terms of my sleep system, I use this Born Outdoors roll. I've mentioned this before in other videos, and it has an air mattress in it, and I have one of those little pumps that's in there. When I roll it out, just plug it in. It just works, you know, it's just a rechargeable one, so it fills right up. These are quilts that are from the Born system. I usually keep an extra wool blanket in here just in case somebody that I'm hunting with, a client, a guide, or whoever, if they need another layer, they can use that wool blanket. All right, so another huge thing that I'll recommend if you're doing this type of setup is these panels right here, and then the hooks you can put in them. Those are huge because you can see how much crap I have hung up on this one. All of that stuff here. Here I've got all my extension cords, tools hung up on those panels. The other way that I use them, so you can see I've got one here, I've got one there. So I use those to tie down things like the toolbox, but the primary thing I use those for is if I want to bring an e-bike in here or I want to bring my motorcycle in here, I can clear the stuff out in here, I can pull it in right here, and then I can tie it down directly to those, and I've got a good solid spot to hold them down. Last thing that goes in the trailer here is my Quiet Cat, and so this is my new pack mule. And anywhere I'm going that I can use this legally, it's coming with me. Great for cruising around at night, locating elk or whatever, or in the wee hours of the morning, being super quiet. Great for spring bear hunting. But I've got a cool little trailer on it. Maybe cameraman can check it out over there. It's folded up right now, but I can easily put a whole bear on that, a couple elk quarters, no problem. And then in terms of in here, I've got this tracking installed on the bottom here so I can move my rings around. And then just with tie-down straps, go straight to the suspension, snug it down into the trailer floor, and it rides perfectly. No problem at all. That's the safest way that I've found to haul them. But the main thing is, when you're hanging stuff up like this, it saves an enormous amount of space without putting shelves into the trailer that's gonna take up your kind of living space, right? So I've got all my packs here. I've got my rain gear drying out. I just got back from Alaska. My sleeping bags, like my down sleeping bags that I don't want, in compression bags I have in here, so they're hanging, they don't get compressed, the down doesn't get compressed. Put all that here, my hats. I've got my little workout bands. This is from Dan, the wild man, and this is just like a little small kind of deal for doing, like rows and stuff like that. And it's very easy to set up. You can put on a tree or whatever. This is the shower that I use. It's just a hanging solar shower. This is the easiest thing that I found to use in terms of, having a shower readily available. Just put water in that thing, throw it on the hood of your truck, and that black color, even in, pretty cold temperatures, that black reflection will heat up the water. And it actually has a little thermometer built in, so you can actually see how warm it is. I just hang that from a tree and take a shower. That's the best bet that I have found. Going beyond that really doesn't make sense. You get into like water pumps and that sort of thing. It's just one of those deals where simple is better. On the shower subject, the other thing that I always have is these little pads here. These little puzzle pads. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go shower under a tree or whatever, and then when you walk back to the trailer, your feet are gonna get dirty, and kind of defeats the whole purpose of going to take a shower, because now your feet are all dirty. Or even if you've got sandals right there, you're standing, in the dirt. Anyways, if you have those puzzle things here, you can set them under your solar shower when you hang it up in a tree, and then you can make like a pretty good spot, right, where you take a shower in one spot, and then you step over, dry off, throw your dry shoes on, dry socks on, and then you're actually clean. You don't have crap all over your feet. So that's the shower setup I use. This is the generator I use right here. I just leave this lock on it because once I get to a place, I take the generator out and then I lock it to the tongue of the trailer, and I'll show you why that is in a minute. That's a decent one. But the Honda version of that's a Honda knockoff, is basically what that wind generator is. It's just a cheaper version of the Honda that looks just like it. The Hondas are red, obviously. It's not as good and it's not as reliable. It does work, but I have had a few little issues with it. You got to kind of baby them a little bit. I keep a fire extinguisher in here all the time, just because what I do is, like, down here I have all my kitchen stuff. When I get to where I'm camping, I don't cook in here. The only cooking, like quote cooking, that I do inside is I'll put a coffee pot in here. I'll use a hot plate if it's freezing ass cold and it's just me, and I'm not using it as like a base station for a bigger camp. I'll do that, a hot plate, and then a coffee machine, just because it's convenient. I don't have to start a fire in the morning or whatever. And then the other thing that I'll run in here sometimes in terms of kitchen stuff is an ice maker. I have a little ice maker. I've actually got it in my other storage right now, but I'll take that a lot just because it's nice if you're somewhere fairly remote to be able to make some ice, for cold water at the base. And then if you get where you're dealing with meat and you just need some ice to keep it cool, it's nice to have one of those little ice machines. And they're pretty, passively will make a fair amount of ice over a day if you kind of stay on it. So those are things I use in here. But outside of that, all my cooking I do outside for obvious reasons. I don't want to get carbon monoxide in here. I want to be, very, thoughtful on that. But the other thing, on that, I do have a carbon monoxide and smoke detector in here. You should do that if you're going to do anything like this. But the other thing is it's just cleaner from like a rodent pest perspective to do all your cooking outside. These are just projects that I'm working on right now. So I use this desk for that. I'm like testing different arrows. These are some new walking sticks I just had to replace. I gave my set to a guy up in Alaska that was headed on a sheep hunt and couldn't get Amazon Prime, so I gave him mine. So those are just new ones. I need to put my clip back on. So that's kind of a project desk for me. Stuff I got dried out, I got to put back in my pack. But oh yeah, one thing I do use quite often are in here, and this is another kind of trick, like space utilization, is these right here. And these are called, what they are is they're sold for putting inside your, your truck or whatever to hold a pistol against. But they're nice in here. Let me see what they're called. Yeah, they're called soft hold gun magnets. Here, I actually have a box from one of them. These guys sent me to test them, and I've been using them a bunch in here. And they just allow me to set stuff on them where it's out of the way, but it's stuff that's readily available. And for me, I have a lot of metal in here, so I don't even have to drill them into the wall. They've got little brackets, easy to drill them in the wall. You could do the same thing I'm doing if you didn't have a bunch of metal. But for me, I can just throw them on here. You can see right here, like this thing. I mean, they're strong magnets, but I can just stick them on that metal. In this case, this knife, this is a Phobos knife. Eric, the guy that owns Phobos, sent me that. And I kind of use it as just a utility knife in here. And the nice thing about it is the sheath has a magnet in it. So it like doubles down in terms of magnets. So I can just stick that puppy there. And then if I need a knife, I've got it readily available. And the sheath's not going anywhere. And I actually use another one right here. I would never store my gun like this when I was driving. But when I'm hunting, I like to have somewhere to set my guns where they're not getting knocked over by people. They're not in the way, but they're readily available. So I use a magnet right here, and these things hold hard to a rifle barrel because it's such a strong magnet. And you can see it's just going to grab it there. And the thing about these is they're not going to mar the barrel, right, and make it look shitty. This just holds on to it. So I use those. I can move them around. That's another kind of space saving deal. Like I said, this is mainly kitchen stuff here. I've got some tools here that are related to just getting stuff done that might occur whenever I'm guiding or outfitting. But most of that's kitchen stuff. I keep an electric chainsaw. I used to keep a gas-powered chainsaw in all my vehicles for obvious reasons. You know, you go in somewhere and then a tree falls down. Everybody should have a saw. I use just an electric chainsaw like this. This is a DeWalt one. It's an expensive one, but just the simplicity of the electric saw in terms of I don't have a bunch of loose fuel in here. I don't have to mix fuel for it. The only thing I need that's fluid for it is bar oil, and that's in there. It's contained. I don't have to worry about it. And even that, I basically put bar oil when I use it, use the bar oil up, and then I've got it done. So that's what I've got there. That's just easier than having a standard chainsaw. If I was going somewhere with like giant trees and I was cutting a bunch of firewood, I would bring a standard gas-powered chainsaw and I would just leave it in the back of my truck. I wouldn't have it in here. The gas saw kind of lets me take it in here and I don't have to, you know, there's a lack of fluids in it where I'm not like smelling a bunch of fuel in here. Even this small generator, I try to use it and use the fuel out of it before I store it in here for a long time because you will get some gas smell in here. So I try to only keep that in here when it's basically empty. You are going to have a little bit, but you want to keep that contained if you're living in here because you will notice it. It's just kind of nasty. Oh yeah, this is an important thing to have. One of these mirrors, because if you're living out of these things for a long time, you'll find that you want to look at a mirror, either to, you know, whatever. See what you look like. See if your beard's going berserk or whatever. So it's nice to have that, and it kind of gives you just a way to, you know, deal with that sort of stuff so you don't have huge, long 2-inch nose hair or something coming out your nose. That's nice to have. Spare tire in here is just in the standard spot. So back here, oh yeah, this is important. So this is some other camp gear that I have here, hunting gear in here, just storage basically. And really what it is it's like if I decide that I need to go backpack hunting, I've got, you know, my jet boil stuff, my mountain house, all this stuff to just change the game a little bit. It's in these boxes here. So that's what you're seeing there. Depending on the type of trip I'm going on, this will change. These are tools and cords and paracord and everything else that I just have use for a lot of the time. So I got nippers, I got a machete, I've got a come along. This is rope and gear for a portable winch. This is all very, you know, variable on what type of hunting you're doing. But a lot of times I'll have this stuff. I always have a shovel again to get out of shitty situations. My truck gets stuck, whatever. I have that stuff here. I've got plenty of extension cords. These are mainly for taking this utility trailer and using it as a base like power station for an extensive camp. So if I've got multiple camps, if I have multiple wall tents and I want electrical lighting in them, which it doesn't really matter what anybody says, it's just simpler than lanterns. It's way nicer to come back to a camp, click on the batteries, and the whole camp lights up. It's just nice. So that's what I got all these extension cords for. Don't go cheap on extension cords. Have good ones so you don't start a fire. This is my solar panels here. So these are just 2 solar panels. I keep them in the original box. I'll put a link in the description. I mean, these are like 5 or 6 years old now, but they're just 2 panels, and I don't even know what the wattage is or the specs on them are, but I'll put that in the description of the video for you guys. They've worked great for me. It's this Renogy company. They're on Amazon, but I just keep them in this box because they ship them in that box and they store well in that box, and moving around, they work well. So when I get to a camp, I just take those out and I'll show you how I plug them in. All right, so this is to me a key component of the whole deal, and it's just a toolbox, just like you'd find in anybody's tool room. But I'll go through it for you because it helps me keep my hunting shit organized. So I keep all my walking sticks, my ice axes, shooting sticks, all of that in here. They just ride well in here. These trekking poles, once I get them fixed, same deal. I'll stick them through that slot, hang them on another set of poles, whatever, and I've got them all in one spot. They all apply to different types of hunts. You know, the ice axes, obviously I'm not using if I'm, you know, hunting elk in a center pivot or something, but I have them all here. I basically permanently keep them here just so I have them. The other thing that I have here is I have a jack. Just depends on what your use case is. I like to have a heavy duty jack for changing tires, picking up a trailer, anything like that. It's useful. I've got room for it. I just slide it under the toolbox. So in the toolbox, all right, so I bring my AC power into here off of my inverter, and that goes into this toolbox, and the lighting might make it tough, but go ahead and look in here. You'll see I've got power strips right there. So the reason I like that, once I get to my hunting spot and I'm, you know, in the hunt, I'll reorganize this a little bit where I have this set up as my power station essentially. So I'm charging up, you know, any of my little charging blocks that I have in my backpack. All these radios in here I'll put up here and plug in. Any of the other things that I need to charge, camera, batteries, anything like that, I'll charge here, the turtle box. I keep my optics up here a lot of the time just because I'm sometimes testing different ones. Everybody's application is going to be much different. So that's why you see all this junk up here, but you really don't, if it's just you hunting, you're not testing gear, that's kind of a unique case. What I would do is I would keep this up here is just kind of like the working stuff that you're using on a daily basis, right? That you're going out and hunting. So you can keep your ammo here, the bino harness that you're using, little stuff like that that you can grab in the morning, throw on, and you're ready to hunt. For me, I do that in addition to this stuff that I have to test up here. So I've got some harnesses, some optics, some of my different tripods, bipods for rifles, that sort of thing. You know, you guys ask me for recommendations on different things, and you guys want to hear things that I've tried that I don't necessarily like. I have tried a ton of bipods that I don't like, including actually the Gunworks guys. I love their guns. They're phenomenal guns on the higher end of the cost spectrum. They're a great product, but I don't like their bipods. And honestly, I don't like a lot of other folks' bipods other than this Hatch bipod. So for you guys on the Mighty Network that were wanting me to, I guess, throw a little shade on some products that I didn't like, that's one of them for sure. There's not a lot of other bipods that I like. I hate the Harris bipod too. A lot of guys have the Harris bipods on their rifles. I don't like those. The one I like is this Hatch bipod, and it's not cheap. There's some others that are like that are nice too, but that's my favorite, and the others I just haven't found anything that's just as good. On that subject matter, I get sent a ton of knives. Montana Knife Company sends me knives. A bunch of other knife companies send me knives. The Montana Knife Company knives, some of them I like. You know, this Stonewall knife. And this shows you the tool chest too. Like here's a bunch of my knives in here. Got a Stonewall in here. So like this Stonewall knife is one of my favorite Montana Knife Company knives. And then there's models of their knives that I don't like, or I wouldn't find myself using a lot. And so you just got to figure out the ones that you do like. But there are ones that, you know, are good and bad. I've got my different sharpeners in here too. But there's like my knife drawer, right? So this tool box is great for that. I can keep my stuff organized. Like here, I've got basically my archery drawer. I've got broadheads, you know, all the different tools I need for archery in here. In here I've got all my calls, even my duck calls, elk calls, predator calls, a couple other tools, some of my shooting stuff. I have my binocular adapters for tripods. Any of my tripod adapters I keep in this drawer, so I keep it all in one spot. And each drawer just is a way for me to keep certain things organized. Game bag, a tool chest like this is hugely helpful. And again, I prefer this in a trailer like this versus a permanent tool chest, because again, I can move it around. This thing's on wheels and I can tie it down. If you look here, again, like there's these panels, these tie down panels. So this panel right here, it runs behind the tool chest and I have it just strapped, right? And it works fine. I've taken this on a rough road, I haven't had problems, and I just strap it down to that tool chest. But if for some reason I needed to fit something in here differently, I can move this tool chest here and re-strap it down on the bottom, on the sides, and it's not going anywhere. And people ask me, do the drawers come out? I've never had the drawers come out. Like maybe I've had them pop a little bit, but they have a fair amount of kind of friction to them. So I don't have them pop out and shit go everywhere. I've never had that issue. But it's just a great way to keep things organized in combination with this top section. I will tell you that if you have a top section like this, just assume that it's gonna fall up. And you can see this one's gotten beat up on the top. I don't worry about it too much, but if you're worried about it, you can strap it down when you go, even if it's not closing right now because I have a bunch of shit in here, but you could strap it down closed. Even if it does close, you need to strap it down or lock it down. And then if it's gonna go up here, just throw a blanket or something on top and then it won't vibrate against the frame of your trailer. So that is the toolbox. You can see all, these are, everybody who sends me stuff that I like their stuff, or at least I like one of their things, their sticker is here. All these people are good people from my perspective and send me cool stuff. All right, let's go out here and I'll give you the info on plugs. All right, so on the electrical stuff, I'll just show you the outside real quick to, I guess, give you a little more depth of what I'm talking about, because it'll tell you all the different setups I can use this for. So this right here is my panel plug. So what I have set up is I can't remember the name of the type of cord, but it's this type of cord right here. These cords right here, these are 4 solar panels. You'll have to figure out, you know, the male, female, positive and negative stuff and make sure you have that all correct. To your panels, that's just electrical work that you'll figure out and do your due diligence or have an electrician help you out. But I have an exterior plug that's waterproof, you know, when I seal it up. So I can plug my panels here. 90% of the time, I have one of those panels laying against the tongue here, one of those panels laying against the tongue here. There are cases where I might put it on the roof. There's cases where I'll extend it via that cord I just showed you out, you know, 30, 40 feet so I can get sunlight if I've got this parked in the shade. If it's warm, I like to park this in the shade or it'll get really hot and then I can put the panels away. If you get into extending where you're putting the panels, you've got to make sure you size the cord, the cable, so you're not creating yourself problems in terms of heat buildup in the cord. But again, that's an electrician question. Not my expertise, but make sure that you just pay attention to that when you're setting these up. But that's what that plug is. This plug here, this male, so let me think what this one does. Let me look. I got to remember. Yes. So the male, what the male allows me to do is I can plug in from my generator. If I'm running the generator outside, I can plug directly into here. It's going to go to my charger that charges my batteries. Plus, it'll run any of the AC directly, you know, the alternating current stuff, the household outlets that you see inside the trailer. It'll run it directly off of this because I'm unplugging the cord in here. Instead of having that cord right there plugged into the inverter, I take it out and I plug it into this if I want to use the power that comes into that outlet. If I want to run something that is AC, alternating current from the outside, I have this female plug here, okay? And that is generally where I'm plugging in any lighting that's going to wall tents. If I've got a coffee maker in a wall tent or something like that, I'll plug in directly here, and that'll work off my little power plant that's inside the trailer. So that kind of gives you a rundown on that. One thing I will say, and I'm not gonna comment on because I didn't research it admittedly very well, but on my network, the Pursuit with Cliff Hunt Squad, it's a mighty network. I'll have a link down in the description. You can check it out. Scott on there has some good insight into structural stuff on these trailers that you want to look into when you're buying the actual trailer. This is not a high-end one that you're looking at. There's a lot of different things that make up these trailers. They might all look the same, but structurally they're a whole lot different. He has a great write-up on the network, so go check it out. It's also just a good group for any hunter that's along the spectrum of getting into hunting, from very beginners to pretty experienced guys. There's a lot of questions that are getting answered there, so jump on there. Like I said, there's a link in the description. All right, guys, so I think that covers it. If you found this useful, it was kind of odd because as I did this video, I realized, like, man, I kind of understand why guys have been asking me. There are things that you work out with just trial and error with the setup like this. So hopefully some of that I save you by you watching this video. If you did get value from the video, do me a huge favor, like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll send you off with this video right here. And what this video is it just dives into the different backcountry shelters, right? So when I can't take this setup to where I'm guiding or hunting or outfitting or whatever, I've got to depend on a more lightweight structure out there, lightweight shelter, tent, teepee, whatever. I cover all that in this video right here, so go check it out. I'll catch you guys next time.